Hello everybody, I hope that you can hear and you can see me well. If yes, please send me a smile when I know that I'm talking not only to myself but to the audience. I see some hearts. I hope it means that you can hear me and see me well. So, today we are painting Como Lake. That's the place I love very much. And I've chosen the photo from my trip, my individual plein air trip last year. And I was so inspired that we are painting today Como, and I'm planning to go there again, not once but many times with my students for art retreat, because it's an amazing place. But as you know, on Instagram there was a real battle when we were choosing the plot what to paint today. So Mallorca or Como Lake. But I think during last hour the Como Lake won. That's why today we're painting the lake. And when I was thinking how to name this tutorial, this live stream, not just Como Lake, because if you look even on the photo, you will see that there are so many objects around that. But I think that we will focus today on reflections and how to make the lake recognizable, so that everybody who looks at the photo, the painting, will think, oh, that's the Como Lake, because there are so many other lakes like in Austria, in Switzerland, and they look the same. But about Como Lake there is something special, and we will discuss this today. I hope that you have all materials with you if you paint now. If you don't paint now, don't worry, you can just watch, you can ask questions, we can just talk, because the live stream is going to be saved, and it will be available on my YouTube channel, and you can paint following this plot later. Rewatch it as many times as you want. Hello Galina, thank you for joining. So as always, if you have any questions, just ask, and we are starting. I'm switching, changing the camera so that you also see what's on my table, and yeah, so we are starting. Some words about the materials. As usually, it's cotton paper from any brand you like. I usually use Hahnemuhle 300 grams, and the texture is grain thin or matte, it is also called. I am using the brushes, the big one for watering the paper, my main brush from Escoda Perla that I usually use for painting. I don't know, but it can be that I'm going to use calligraphic brush today, just because it's bigger than my main Escoda, but I'm not sure because my piece of paper is not that big. And also I'm going to use, as usually, yes, some thin brush. It can be schlepper brush or rigger brush, whatever you call it. So it's just a thin brush for making splashes, for making details. And due to that fact that today we're talking about reflections, I love flat brushes for reflections more than round ones, because flat brushes, these are all synthetic brushes, flat brushes take less water than round ones, And for reflections, it's important so that the reflection has still the shape, the initial shape, so that it doesn't just bleed crazy. So that's about the brushes. And about the colors, I will open the photo and we will discuss the colors. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask. If you write a comment, I will see your comment and will answer. So this is the initial photo I've done, and we will discuss the colors like following the objects that we see here. So the first object is the sky, and this was the weather before the storm. That's why it's not pure sunny day. This sky is a bit grayish. That's why I'm going to use ultramarine, but also I will change it by adding a bit of cadmium orange PO20 pigment. It can be that your cadmium orange is different cadmium orange, and if you use any orange, there is a high risk that you will get green color. I doubt that you want green sky. That's why if you're not sure what orange you have, use burnt sienna. This is warm brown, and this mixture also gives very nice grayish blue, the same as this. With this one just a bit more fresh. On the tube you can also always check what pigment is inside, because sometimes it is called cadmium orange, but still there are some yellows and reddish inside, so that's important. Yeah, I'm sure, or burnt sienna. When I'm going further and I see the further mountain, which is here, and due to air perspective we know that everything which is far away is a bit soft. That's why I'm going to use lavender, so that it's not that bright and intensive color. And the lavender is usually bright, at least in my case, because I'm using lavender from Rosa Gallery, and it's rather intensive. I love the color, but for further objects it's too bright. That's why I can neutralize it a bit. So just one drop of the same of burnt sienna or cadmium orange, I will get it more neutral. Then let's discuss the hills. The hills are rather typical for Como Lake. These are very fluffy, even fluffy trees, because all the hills are covered with hills, and there are greenish and darkish colors. That's why I'm going to use olive green, just normal green. It can be also sap green, but please don't use phthalo green or emerald or Viridian. This green for the hills is too bright. It can be that this is also too bright. In this case, please add some lavender, or royal blue, so the color which is a bit neutral, not that bright, because the hills are rather far away. For the shadow lines like these I'm going to use indigo, and to show the small towns on the hills I'm going to use some warm color. It can be yellow ochre or very watery burnt sienna. Why I speak about the towns? Because this makes Como. That's important. Because if you check other lakes, it's not necessary that on each hill you will see a small city or a small town or a village, but for Como it's really typical. That's why when I'm doing a pencil drawing, I'm very easy can remove the beer I can very easy remove the tree because it's not typical. It's just exactly for Como. I mean, it can be typical for any lake. But I'm not going to remove the houses because this is important for me. Yeah, so these were the colors, and what is left, the color for the water. The water I would suggest to divide into two like pieces: water itself and reflection. Water itself has the same color as the sky. You can check now, grayish blue, the same grayish blue. It is getting a bit more with a bit of greenish. This will be phthalo green, just a bit to our gray, because the reflection which is here also influences on the color of the water. But in general, it's the same grayish blue, and the reflection from all these hills are very nice phthalo green. I will also neutralize phthalo green as usually because it's not a sunny day. That's why pure phthalo green is too much. But if you add a bit of burnt sienna, you will have it a bit neutral. If you want it colder, you are adding indigo. So like these two or these two. It depends what color of the hills you will do, because the reflection depends on the color which is which you will use for your hill. So first to make the hill, then we will see what we are going to use for the reflections, either these two or also adding indigo, so it depends. Shallow water is rather warm and rather light. I'm going to use neutralized yellow ochre, so it can be mixed with phthalo green, but very soft and transparent. And the pebble beach, some grayish, purplish. You can also use yellow ochre and lavender. You will get very nice gray. So this is the color story for this plot. And as you noticed, I'm done with the pencil drawing. You can download it for free on my Patreon channel, and the link is in the description to this video. So you perhaps noticed that there are some objects on the photo that I removed. So I removed the tree, and I removed the pier, these flowers, this part. So I left only the sky, only the hills and the water with the reflection and a bit of pebble beach. Why? Because we cannot paint several hours in a row due to the fact that it's live stream. And the next, I decided to focus on reflections and to make this Como lake really recognizable without adding details that are not saying it's Como, but the towns, yes, they say about that. So the pencil drawing, you can see it on my Patreon. You can download it, and I also see it here. What's important, I'm saying to you that the size of the hills is different. You can also check that on the photo, because this hill is closer to us, that's why it's higher. When I'm making this kind of a line to show the water, and also make sure that all your hills finish on different level to show that one is further, one is closer. This one is closer to us, that's why it ends a bit lower than that one. So this is important. So let's make the photo. Let's make the sketch, sorry. I need my pencil. Do I have it? Uh-oh. Uh-oh. I think I don't. I usually use the pencil with, that's a big difference when you make live stream and when you record. If I would record it, I would just stop now and will search for the pencil. Oh, okay, I don't have it. So let's make a pencil drawing then. Okay, less place for the sky and more place for the water. Looks like I lost it. Yes. Just make it a bit different. Not the same. You can mark the places for the towns or just leave it and just remember about that when I'm also making that one. By the way, no, it's not a good pencil, and I also don't have the eraser, so that's the thing, because that pencil is with the eraser from the other side. Now, if you always use the same material, think, where is it? Can also show a bit the lines for the shadows. You can also mark them like this, and also several lines. This is the line for this kind of a foam. And one more line to divide shallow water from the deep water. Yeah. So this is my sketch. I cannot, I think, remove it. So my plan is, as usually, yes, this is the compositional thing, and always decide how much place for upper part, how much place for the lower part. I prefer painting water, that's why more place I will dedicate to my water. These two hills never meet in the middle of your painting. That's why it is also on the photo, right? It's not in the middle, but more to the left, so that this point is not in the middle. So this everything about the composition. No, one more thing that's also important, so that this is not equal to this, and like this is not equal to this, because all the shapes should be different. That's important. The next that we will be practicing today is again wet on wet technique, and how thick should be the paint so that it doesn't bleed and it stays with the shape, based on that fact that I paint on wet paper. For all the places that should be dark, that should stay on its place and do not bleed, I use cream consistency. Cream consistency is a very thick paint with just one drop of water and with a synthetic brush, which is very important. Yeah, so I will just take any color just to show how it works. Very thick pigment, because this is very thick, it always stays on its place, and if you paint, you see very much of white paper, and if I add water, then you get different consistency. It's tea consistency. For example, the sky here is very light, that's why I'm going to use tea consistency for the light, for the sky, tea consistency for the hills, except shadow parts of the hills, so that we see the difference. And what else for today is the painting the reflections, which is very important. By the way, is anybody painting now or not? I will wet the paper from back completely, and from front not completely. From front I will explain my logic. I usually use two brands of paints. These are the already mentioned Rosa Gallery and Daniel Smith. But today I've checked also what additional colors I have, and I found very nice color. This is granulation color from Schmink. It is called Shire Blue. I made this swatch of it, and then I see that I don't see any granulation. It's just normal color. But what happens next? I will show you. It's already, yeah, it's here. So your granulation depends what paper you use, because this is just normal paper, this is watercolor paper. But then I take also watercolor paper, but from another brand, which is more, this is more grain thin, so it's like middle texture, and this one is more rough texture. And look how big is the difference, because here you can also see green and bluish, so more color. It's the same as it's stated on the tube here, but if your paper is very smooth, you just don't see these different colors, because sometimes I hear from my students that that granulation doesn't work. So granulation works with so many conditions, like amount of water, amount of pigment, how fresh is the pigment. So it's just a separate story, a separate live stream how to use granulation colors. But what's important also the paper, how structured it is. The more structure has your paper, the more granulation effect you will see. So it's back. If you paint or if you watch and if you post it on social media, it's so great, because more people know about the tutorial, join us, paint with us. That's super cool. It's still from back. I need lots of water. And now I will water from front, but only till the horizon line. I also add in here, I'm not going to paint now there, but I want that there are no gaps between the board and the paper. Otherwise the paper will be drying quicker than I expect. Yes, and now removing the water around. And I will prepare the first color. The first color is, as we talked already, it's ultramarine, but it should be neutralized. That's why you're painting, Sophia. Cool. So it's ultramarine, but should be neutralized. For neutralizing, you use either good orange, the right orange, or use a bit of burnt sienna. It's nice color. With orange, you get so nice deep blue for the sky. And just a bit chaotic, leaving white spots, because we see that there are white spots between these dark spots, but it's very light. It can bleed a bit in the mountains, in the hills, it's not a problem. I prefer using natural brush for these places, but it can be also done with a synthetic one, but take less pigment. Because it's always a risk if you paint just with synthetic brush, and if it's not big enough, it can be a bit stripy. This is clean, dry brush. And I have to remove the water around to avoid cauliflowers. Now with the synthetic brush, I am adding a bit of the color for that hill. We agreed that it will be lavender, and I'm adding a bit of green. It can be any green you have. I'm using olive green, but please don't use emerald green. Yes, it's too this, I think. Now I'm using more olive. I will also put the angle so that the hills do not bleed into the sky. Very thick paint. So only the upper part I'm doing with neutralized green, olive green and a bit of lavender, and the same here, but only for upper part. Below I'm going to use some color for the roofs. It can be ochre, it can be even orange, but very light, so it's tea consistency, like this. So these are the places for the towns, for the cities there. I cannot start now with painting dark, but I'm still waiting. I cannot come immediately to paint the below part. If you have the colors that I mentioned, like this one, you can also use it, or some other very beautiful granulation colors, please feel free to use them. The only thing is that if you use, for example, very granulated color like lunar black or lunar blue, they are a bit too dark for this place. Because the granulation particles there are rather big. Now I'm taking indigo mixed with green and adding a bit of lines that go diagonally. But I don't touch the place with ochre. I will try also with synthetic brush, adding even more indigo. Very thick consistency, so here is important to use very thick. If it's too dark, but you still need to be lighter, but you cannot add water because you need thick pigment, I'm adding lavender, because lavender consists white, and in this case you get the result. And I'm leaving the place for this city. For now, I'm leaving it. And on some places it's even darker. It's still a bit wet, that's why I'm adding some lines. They will a bit dissolve and I will get the result I want. A bit upper it's darker, but further it's again lighter. And only diagonal movements. And leaving still this spot for the town. So now I'm going to start with water. And to avoid risk that everything bleeds up, I will leave like 1-2 millimeters of dry paper so that it doesn't bleed completely into my upper part, which is already done. So watering the paper completely till this line. Very accurate, yes, 2 millimeters, it makes us safe. In general, reflections is a very big topic because reflections can be with soft edges, reflections can be with hard edges. The further is the reflection from you, the softer are the edges. The closer, then you will see the hard edges. The hard edges you can always get while painting on dry paper. So our objects are far away, that's why I'm going to add soft edges. That's why I'm watering the whole paper. And what I'm going to do now, mixing the colors, pairing the colors for pebble, for shallow water, and for water, and for reflection later. So the color here, we can see that also from the photo, is the same as the sky. That's why the color of the sky I will use now. I will put a bit of the paper so that the paper takes all excessive water. To avoid cauliflowers, I think you know that. Because it's easy to forget that you have to check, have to So the colors, the color of the sky goes also for the water. It was ultramarine mixed with a bit of orange. This place we have here and also there. Separately, I'm adding to this color a bit of phthalo blue to show that the reflection color influences a lot on the water. So I'm adding a bit of phthalo green, or it can be Viridian, emerald, so something bright. Yes, here it is. And separately I'm making shallow water. For shallow water I'm using ochre. I will show you like this. So I'm using ochre and adding a bit of emerald. So you get very nice color. This. And for pebble I will be using lavender mixed with ochre. I'm getting a bit of a grayish color like this. Nice. There are no questions. Looks like you are working hard. No? I come back again because it's going to dry, and when it dries I can add more details to make it really Como style, like footsteps. This one is darker, so I'm adding here as well. So I highly recommend you Como for some kind of retreats. It's an amazing place. What I don't recommend is to rent a car there. It was so stressful because of lots of buses and all these serpentine roads. Oh no, it was really stressful. That's why I thought, oh no. But all other things are just gorgeous there. So it's wet. I will wet it a bit again. And now starting with the color of the sky. Where I see it in the middle, so here. So you see this 2 millimeters, I don't touch. So this place is here. I also see this place here. But only till the shallow line. A bit here. And now I'm taking the greenish color and all other places in between I'm making with this color. Only horizontal lines, it's typical for painting water. And I'm coming a bit further into all other colors, I mean the color of the sky, so that there is a very smooth transition. Now I'm taking shallow water. Also smooth connection, so coming a bit inside. Here the shallow water is a bit darker, that's why I'm using a bit more intensive color. But only horizontal lines, that's important. What I'm going to do now is to come in closer, but still leaving this 1 millimeter. And the color for the pebble. Lavender and a bit of ochre. I'm leaving a bit of this light part to show a bit of the foam. And now I will start with the reflection. So for the reflection, I'm choosing synthetic brush, flat one. I think it's easier. The color that I used for the heels, this was emerald green or phthalo green. I also used a bit of indigo and lavender, because with lavender it's a bit more safer. And indigo. And with horizontal lines, hi, we will see each other on Saturday. I think there are more people now painting or just watching who will join on Saturday. So coming closer. Now I'm not afraid to come in closer because my brush is absolutely dry, only the pigment. So like this, and making now horizontal lines. And leaving a bit of gaps. If it's too greenish or too bluish, you change a bit the color. The focus of this reflection is still here, yes, so under this hill. Just leaving a bit of gaps in between. And the closer you come to the beach, the less and the rest of reflection you have. Like, more like already footsteps. And the same from another side. Also very thick line here. Make sure that it's below and that one, so you see that this shore is closer to us. Very thick consistency for reflections, because reflections are rather dark. You can change a bit the color so that on some places it's more bluish or more greenish. And on the place where you see shallow water, the reflection also changes its color and it's becoming more warmish. If it's too light, I'm adding also a bit of the color from the edges. What I don't like about reflections that it can be too stripy. That's why on some places I'm holding the brush not only like this, but also solid, like with bigger side so that it's more natural. What also can help you when you take soft brush and blend it, it becomes not that stripy. Adding a bit of textures. These are splashes, also like some lavender splashes, but not clean lavender, yes, so it's neutralized with a bit of burnt sienna or something which is complementary. Usually when the water comes to the shore, there are also shadows under this amount of water. That's why I'm also going to add it. Oops. Changing the paper. Yes. So I'm adding a bit of the shadow effect. For that I'm taking the same color, which is lavender, and a bit of ochre. Very thick consistency, and under this kind of water I'm adding a bit of this shadow effect. Not everywhere, that's important, because then it will be like cut out. The same if you always do reflection on dry paper, it can be also like a bit cut out from the environment. If you have any questions, just ask. A bit of warmish, as usually this shows that this place is closer to us. And now I coming back again to the reflections to make some of them with hard edges. I want to show that some of the lines are further, the reflections, some are closer to us. That's why the same color, indigo, emerald green, neutralize it with burnt sienna. If it is too warm, I'm adding lavender. And again a bit of lines. So this better to wait. This will be more hard edges because the paper is now starting to dry. You can ask me about the cities. Yes, I will add them later on. The towns, actually, these are not cities. The key is very thick pigment. Synthetic brush and horizontal lines. I will add more splashes now to this area to create this pebble effect. Something darker, but not blackish. I'm thinking that to start already painting the city, but it should be dry, right? Because if you make the roofs, actually when it's far away, you see only the roofs. You don't see the windows or even the houses. Everything is about the roofs. And the roofs are usually light because they look, the light, they face, yeah, the lightest part, which is the sky. That's why they're very light. Yeah, either using a hairdryer or wait. Okay, I will start making more, I think. Of these reflections. Because they get dissolved, and I want that some have hard edge, some have soft edge. So I will now make this part dry because I want to make the town. So I will switch off now the sound because you will hear my hair dry. So this place is dry and I will be using negative painting for that place. The same colors. So I will leave now. Perhaps with a round brush is easier. Negative painting is when you leave the initial layer and you paint only around. So let's say if you have the house, then the roof is just like line. So I will create these lines of different size, of different position, higher, closer. You can see more of the houses closer to the shore. That's why I'm leaving there more gaps. On this place I don't have anything, but there I think there are a bit of the houses as well. And I'm changing a bit the color, so it's not just one green. On some places I'm adding, while the green is still wet, a bit of brown, can be any other color. Like this. And now I'm pulling that color up so there is no gap between the initial color of the mountains and the city. So a bit like this. And the same I'm doing from this side. Here it's less, but still making these gaps, make it in negative painting. Some are vertical, some are horizontal. Usually the houses on Como are closer to the water, that's why I leave more of the first layer below. And pulling upper. and adding additional colors. You remember, it's not just one color. To create higher contrast around the light roofs, you can add even darker color around. Just put in some boxes, lines, dots. This is a suggestion for the city. I see some darker place here, that's why I adding that. So how are you doing there who are painting? Checking again a bit the reflections. Some are hard edge, you remember that. Some are soft edge. So I'm using the wet paper with the full extent. For soft edges, I'm using it immediately. For hard edges, when it's starting to dry. But you need to know your paper very well. That's also very important. Because if you usually use different brands, you don't have even time to notice how it works. Because every time it will be different. These are just something. It's not that boring, yes? Actually, from this photo, it's possible to make several plots. This also adding the tree and also adding the pier, but it's more like for the tutorial that I can record, but not for the tutorial we paint during the live stream, because it has more elements, and more elements usually require like more time. We are almost done. I'm using a bit of white. Thin brush. when I put it like this, I will get horizontal splashes. But need, I think, more, a bit of water or a bit of more paint. It's rather old brush. I think more water, more paint. This is liquid watercolor from Schminke, opaque white. But you can also use any other watercolor which is opaque, and also gouache, of course, but not acrylics. Because acrylics has a bit of like shiny effect, and believe me, it will be visible that this is acrylics. Yeah, the brush doesn't work anymore like it used to be. Yes, so I think that I'm done. That interesting to hear your questions. Yeah, any comments. I will not switch now the cameras, because I guess you want to see what's here, and after I hope you finish, I will switch the camera and will say you goodbye, and let's meet in a week to paint something interesting. As usually, I will make the poll on Instagram so that you can vote, and perhaps next time Mallorca will win, or again Como, who knows. So any questions, you are welcome. If there are no questions, I will switch the camera and we will finish the live stream. It's quite fun with the voting. I know, yes, it's true, because we can also influence on what we paint. If you ask me what would I paint, I would paint only like special plots. But I don't think that so many people would just follow those plots. That's why I make it a bit diverse, so that we can communicate, and it adds a bit of interaction and entertainment moment. Yeah, so I will now switch the camera. Yes, the live stream happens every Wednesday at 5:30, 4:30 European time. I think it's European. It's Amsterdam time. Yeah, so you are welcome to join next Wednesday. I hope it will happen, because it's before the Fabriano Live's Watercolor Festival. So I have to be in Bologna, but I think that I will manage, I hope. And all other streams are also recorded from last week. So you can also rewatch them and also ask questions there. So thank you everybody for joining. If you post it on your social media, please tag me. More people will see your result, because I repost, more people will see, but will listen, will hear about the tutorial. And I wish you a great evening today, and if you want to paint, it will be saved for you. Thank you for joining, and have a great evening.